This video on FPL TV is very proudly sponsored by OneFootball. With a rating of 4.8 out of 5 from now over 100,000 reviews on the App Store, OneFootball truly is the biggest and best app for football news, scores and stats from hundreds of leagues all over the world. As for FPL, you can choose to follow every team in the Premier League on OneFootball and then get live updates from all the goals and assists every game week. Download it now completely free using the link in the description box below. Hey guys, and welcome back to FPL TV. Before looking to my team selection for Game Week 6, let's quickly see how the side performed in the previous game week. With me making that huge mistake in the previous game week by transferring in an injured Dominic Calvert-Lewin, for Game Week 5 I had to waste another free transfer on resolving this error. In came Patrick Bamford for that one free transfer, and he opened his account with a single assist, albeit a very generous one, which I was pretty happy with. Bamford was largely starved of service through that game, though he did squander one very good chance in the second half. Not his best performance, but Leeds do have an extended run of good fixtures from now, so hopefully he can prove to be a good asset during those game weeks. Though let's hope his ankle injury isn't a bad one, especially considering I just got rid of one injured player for him. All ears now will be firmly on Bielsa's press conference on Thursday afternoon. I also had Luke Ayling in that fixture, who too picked up an injury, and his only points of the season were back in Game Week 1 whilst he was sat on my bench. A bit of a disastrous pick so far. Speaking of disastrous picks, Luca Digne was back to his FPL best in Game Week 5. The Everton fullback was one of my biggest differentials heading into the game week, and he went from holding on to a clean sheet in 60 minutes to conceding and then heading into his own net 9 minutes later. A calamity of a pick so far, with just 9 points to his name in 5 game weeks. To make things worse, he then went on to score in the cup in midweek, just to rub that salt in the wounds, and then picked up an injury which may rule him out for Game Week 6, that nice home fixture against Norwich. F***ing nightmare. The plan was of course to hold him for that upcoming Norwich fixture, and even though another blank is inevitable, even a 20-pointer from Digne wouldn't stop me moving him on to a Chelsea defender in Game Week 7. As for the Liverpool triple-up in Game Week 5, it was another decent return, but this time all thanks to the Egyptian king Mo Salah, who racked up 24 points as my captain, salvaging what was an extremely frustrating game week overall. I mentioned last week how important it was for Diogo Jota to perform during these kind fixtures, as he's my biggest differential of the three, but the frustration continued with him as he missed an unbelievable chance, blasting over from less than 6 yards out. The consistent Trent Alexander-Arnold was unfortunately ruled out due to illness last week, so with my squad already threadbare due to the Antonio suspension, in came Billy Gilmour for a 3-pointer, somehow managing a bonus point despite not being involved in any of the 4 goals scored. I'll take it. I also had Sissoko in that fixture, my other budget enabler, and unfortunately he wasn't involved in any of the goals either. In what was looking like a disastrous game week, luckily on Sunday things did improve a bit, with both Benrahma and Ronaldo scoring against each other. Including Luke Shaw, that was 18 points from that fixture, which I'd have certainly have taken before the game started. So, in a game week where I had suspensions and injuries to deal with, thus having to use a lot of my bench players, my team managed a score of 57. On paper, considering how threadbare my side was for Game Week 5, it's really not that bad of a score. And in fairness, it still managed to score more than the average last week by 2 points. However, the average amongst the higher ranked players was still a lot greater, with totals between 65 and 70 being the real par score. So I'd put this one down as a bad game week, but not a shambolic one that it was looking to be. Unsurprisingly, despite scoring above average, it was a red arrow down to 320k, and I hope this won't now be a repeat of last season, where I got stuck in limbo around this rank for many months on end. After a game week like this, it can be common to start questioning your decision making and your squad in general, but ultimately, what separated the good scores and bad last week was really just the difference of one player, with a lot of those that did well having the likes of a 15-pointer from Ismail Assar or a Chelsea defender. So fine margins, and had Diogo Jota scored that easy chance, then it would have completely changed the context of my game week. So let's move on to Game Week 6 now and see how my side currently lines up as well as any potential transfer moves. Also, if you do enjoy the content here at FPL TV, then be sure to leave a like and most importantly get subscribed. If you want to support the channel further, you can also hit that notification bell and then you'll be first to know when any new content goes live. Thank you for the support. Heading into Game Week 6, the initial plan was to hold the transfer here, because on paper I thought my side looked strong enough to do so, and it will definitely be very handy to have 2 free transfers in Game Week 7, when Chelsea then have an excellent run of fixtures, allowing me to load up on their players. However, a lot has changed in the last week, and at the moment, my squad is dealing with a lot of uncertainties with regards to injuries. No less than 4 of my players are currently listed as doubts, with Luca Digne frustratingly adding to that list, right before that plum home fixture against Norwich, one game I was actually optimistic to own him for. So this week will certainly be a bit of a wait and see, to find out more about the status of these 4 injuries, before I can really decide on what to do. Of course, it's all a guessing game as things stand, but with Alexander-Arnold missing the last game through illness, you'd fancy him to be fine for Brentford. As for the Leeds players, well, I'm hoping Bamford will be okay, who did continue on after suffering that ankle injury against Newcastle. He was then rested for the Cup in midweek, so would have had 8 days to recover before West Ham. Marco Bielsa is also often very clear about injuries to his squad during the press conferences, so hopefully he can clear that up then on Thursday. As for Luca Digne, well, that one's definitely a concern in my opinion. It's a fresh injury suffered in midweek, and as we found out in Rafa's press conference recently, well, he wasn't very clear when it came to Calvert-Lewin, so I don't expect him to be very helpful before the deadline. If Luca Digne was to miss out, then it's Sissoko at home to Newcastle, who's currently placed as first on my bench. A likely 2-pointer of course, but not the worst option in the world to have as backup. In this current squad, I've also opted to start Livramento this week, who's put in a string of impressive performances this season, and with Southampton now looking a lot more organised defensively, impressively keeping that clean sheet away to Man City last time out. They also face Wolves in Game Week 6, who are currently the league's lowest scorers with just 2 goals in 5 games. Providing everyone is past fit, then I'm pretty happy with how my squad lines up this week, and looking at the injuries that Leeds have suffered in defence at the moment, I'm certainly happy to have kept Antonio through his suspension, who I hope can do the business here. So, although the plan is to save a transfer this week, let's look at a few potential moves I could make. If Luca Digne wasn't past fit, then the obvious transfer I could make is to move him onto one of the Chelsea defenders, with both Alonso and Rudiger firmly on my most wanted list. For me, this move is obviously a no-brainer, but it's not one I wanted to make this game week, with Chelsea facing Man City and Digne having that nice home fixture against Norwich. It was the following game week 7, where making this move looked to be the ideal time. But if I have to do it this week, then so be it. The way Chelsea are defending at the moment, a clean sheet against anyone is looking like good odds. From Game Week 7 onwards, Chelsea head into an extremely favourable run of fixtures, so the plan from then is to likely bring both of these in and double up on that very reliable defence. As mentioned a few times already, my intention this week was to roll the free transfer, but if I had no injury concerns, then making a transfer this week was going to completely depend on whether or not I utilise the wildcard in Game Week 7. If I were to use the wildcard in Game Week 7 and target a triple up of Chelsea players, then of course there'd be no need in saving a transfer this game week, therefore giving me the luxury of a 1-week punt in Game Week 6. In terms of taking that 1-week punt, then the 2 players I was looking at are Demarai Gray and Ismaila Sarr, simply targeting their 2 nice home fixtures against Norwich and Newcastle respectively. With 1.4 million in the bank, I can upgrade Sissoko to Demarai Gray, who I only like as a 1-week punt, or to afford Sarr, I'd have to downgrade Jota instead, and to be fair to Sarr, I don't mind him as a longer term pick as well. By transferring in either of these, I think it would then make it a lot more difficult to load up on Chelsea players in the following game week, which is why it would then push me closer towards activating a Game Week 7 wildcard, but I think taking 2 free transfers into that week keeps me a lot more flexible on that big decision. For the captaincy in Game Week 6, given Mo Salah's consistency so far this season, of course he always remains a contender. But with an away fixture to Brentford, who so far have looked very organised defensively, it's likely I'm going to opt for either Ronaldo or Antonio instead. Impressively, Brentford have conceded the second least big chances this season with 4, as well as the second least shots on target. If I am to make a decision based on the opponent, then surely Antonio has to be the standout here, because Leeds' defensive stats have been very poor so far, conceding 62 shots inside the box in just 5 games, the most in the division, not to mention their 13 big chances conceded and all the defensive injuries they're dealing with at the moment too. So plenty of logic there to warrant a captaincy on Antonio, but despite all that reasoning, it's very hard to back him over Ronaldo in a home fixture, and that's the 50-50 that I'm weighing up this week. Ronaldo's opponents Villa have been far better defensively than Leeds, but it's his individual stats in the first 2 game weeks since his return that really make him stand out. In his first 2 game weeks, no player has had more shots than Ronaldo, no more inside the box, and he's also top for big chances. So with such a high volume of chances in that small sample of 2 game weeks, you'd have to back him to get something. So that's all my thoughts and considerations heading into Game Week 6. Like I said, the injury updates will really have a bearing on what I do this week, and if I do make any transfers, it'll likely be on deadline day, which I'll then post over on Twitter. Hopefully I can receive some positive news about all these injury concerns, and then keep things simple this game week. Good luck to you all for Game Week 6, FPL responsibly, and I'll catch you all very soon.